On behalf of Pastor James Alexander and the Sycamore Hill Missionary Baptist Church family, we would like to welcome you to our homecoming revival. For 160 years, Sycamore Hill has stood planted in the Greenville community, akin to the very tree whose name we bear, at the intersection of serving the community and God's saving grace. We originate from humble beginnings, whether our original site on 1st and Green Street to our formative years on West 8th Street and to our present edifice on Hooker Road. While our location has changed, our purpose and passion to be an extension of Christ to the community has not changed. On any given Sunday, you will find a church that at heart is a house of prayer, one who believes that prayer changes things. Not only are we a house of prayer, but a house of praise, worshiping the Lord with our whole selves. And we are a house of proclamation, speaking truth to power, to our community. Above all, we are a friendly, loving, vibrant congregation and would love to tell you about all of it. Our doors swing open on welcome hinges. Meet us on the hill.
We are thankful on the second night of revival to have someone who is not a stranger to Sycamore Hill, and that is my sister, my friend, and my colleague, the Reverend Anita Wright, pastor of the Trinity Presbyterian Church in Montclair, New Jersey. A native of Big Island, Virginia, Pastor Anita holds degrees from Virginia University of Lynchburg and is presently a doctoral candidate at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey. She is gifted in proclamation. She is gifted as a teacher. She's gifted as an orator. But most importantly, she is a woman after God's own heart. And we are just excited and delighted for this opportunity to hear what thus saith the Lord from her. So please extend your prayers, extend your hands in prayer for her as she comes. Pastor Anita Wright of the Trinity Presbyterian Church in Montclair, New Jersey.
How excellent Good evening, Sycamore Hill. It is again my great honor and pleasure to be with you tonight as you celebrate your revival. To your pastor, Reverend James Alexander, and his beautiful, absolutely lovely wife, Reverend Amanda Alexander. It is great to be here and to share with you again on this evening. Tonight, for our consideration, our text will be coming from Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. And this is what the word of the Lord says. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning, he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat began to worship him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." This evening, for as long as God allows me to stand before you, I'd like to preach to you from the subject, water walking. Beloved of God, there are moments in our lives that define our faith journey. We can look back on them and we can recognize that God was at work. And we see that at that moment, in those circumstances, we came to know God in a much deeper way. One of those moments for me was my first week of college during orientation at the University of Virginia. I remember that day so clearly. My parents had dropped me off and I was settled in my room. I had attended my first day of orientation and now I was back in my room before the next thing was supposed to happen. I was alone. My roommate was somewhere else, maybe in her orientation group. And I remember giving in to this overwhelming emotion that had been welling up in me all day long. I was scared. I was anxious. I didn't know if I could do it. And I remembered thinking, I want my mama. I just want to go home. In that moment, I also remembered something that my parents had instilled in me: prayer. So I prayed, crying out to God to help me in that space in my dorm room on the university campus. I heard God speak to me. The sense of peace that washed over me was amazing. I felt assured that I would make it. I would succeed. I would have to work hard, but I would be all right. This exchange with God was not the first time nor the last time that I would have a faith-defining moment with God. This moment defined a time that I did not have the safety net of my parents at my disposal, and I needed to rely on God personally. And in that moment, something became very real to me. When I called on God, God would answer me. This was a moment that defined the development of my own faith journey. This was no longer my parents' religion. This was now a personal relationship with God. Our text today provides another faith-defining moment. The pericope today takes place after Jesus had performed the miracle with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and had fed the 5,000. It had been a long day for Jesus. He started the day by learning of the beheading of his cousin, John the Baptist. As he tried to get away to just be by himself and to wrap his mind around this information, the people followed him. Moved by compassion, Jesus paused his personal mourning to heal their sick. As evening approached, the disciples wanted to send the people away. They thought that they were being compassionate in allowing the people to get back into the city so that they could take care of their personal needs before the sun went down. However, Jesus gave the disciples another option. Jesus had the crowd sit down and fed them with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Now, after that is where we enter our text. Immediately after Jesus fed the 5,000, he sends the disciples away while he dismissed the crowd. Afterwards, Jesus went up on the mountain by himself to pray. My guess is Jesus was picking up where he left off when he stopped to heal and feed the people. My guess is that Jesus was finally getting to a place where we could take some time by himself in the silence and in the solitude to really just kind of deal with the trauma of the beheading of John the Baptist. The text says, "And when he came down, he was alone." The boat was a far way off from shore because the storm had risen and the gales of wind had buffeted the boat. It was very early in the morning during the 4th watch, which is somewhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. Jesus walks on the water toward the boat where the disciples were. The disciples see a figure approaching them and they think that it is a ghost. That's a reasonable suspicion because people don't walk on water. People don't appear out of a mist in the middle of a storm on a wind-tossed sea. But Jesus speaks to them and reassures them that it is him. Jesus says, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter says, "If it is you, Lord, command me to come." Now, this seems like a redundant request. Jesus said, "Do not be afraid, for I am here. It is I." Then Peter says, "Well, if it's really you, command me to come." What? I mean, Peter, are you daft? Are you a little slow of understanding? Jesus just told you that it was him. Peter, I don't understand why you're still questioning if it is really Jesus. When we have moments like this, when reading the text, we should then take a pause and explore some more. Obviously, something is happening behind the scenes that we do not see with the naked eye. Something is not readily apparent. And so when I read this and I began to question Peter's sanity, I slowed down and I read it a little more closely. What is not immediately clear in the English text is the full importance of what Jesus said. When Jesus said, "It is I," Jesus used the Greek phrase, "ago eimi." This is the Greek construction of the same phrase God uses in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14 to reveal God's self to Moses. Ego eimi is the same as the I am in Exodus when God reveals himself as the I am that I am. Therefore, what Jesus was really saying is, do not be afraid, for the I am is here. The I am is with you. Jesus is not only identifying himself as they know him as Jesus, yet Yeshua, but he is also revealing his divine nature, his divine identity as God incarnate, Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus is telling the disciples not to be afraid because God incarnate, Emmanuel, is right here with them, coming to them in the middle of the storm. Therefore, when Peter says, "Lord, if it's really you, bid me to come," what Peter is really saying is that, Jesus, if you really are God, then command me to come to you on the water so that I may know your power and defy nature too. Oh, beloved of God. And then Jesus complies. Jesus says, come. Peter gets out of the boat and walks toward Jesus. It is all so awesome. And it is going so well until Peter notices the wind. But I got to pause right here, because when we then understand what God is revealing to Peter, God is helping us to know that I am is with us, and that the I am was with Peter in that storm. It was a faith-defining moment. The interesting thing here is that the wind had been present all the time. Notice it says Peter got out of the boat. He began to walk to Jesus, and when he recognized the wind, he began to sink. The wind had been blowing the entire time. When Jesus came to them, it was in the storm. They were far from shore because of the storm. When Peter got out of the boat, it was still storming. Yet at this moment, Peter noticed, or he paid attention to the wind. Maybe the wind had increased in its intensity. Maybe Peter got comfortable walking on the water and took note of his surroundings. Maybe Peter came to himself and realized that, wait a minute, he was out of the boat, nothing substantive was underneath his feet, and the wind suddenly became a real factor for him. Whatever the case, Peter now recognizes the wind. He notices the wind, and in noticing the wind, Peter recognized his own vulnerability. It seemed like a good idea to follow Jesus and to come where Jesus was. But now he is out there with no safety net, without the safety and security and the protection of the boat. He is on the water with no firm foundation under his feet. And beloved of God, can I just let you know that many of us find ourselves in this place as well? We find ourselves in a similar space that when we decide to follow Jesus, we say, I will follow you where you lead me. Where you tell me to go, I will go. And then we get out of our comfort zones. We find ourselves out there doing the work and the will of God. And we realize, wait a minute, I am in the midst of a storm and I don't have anything underneath me. And we began to get scared. We get shaken up. We are in our faith-defining moments. We are operating on a spiritual high, and we ask Jesus to call us to him, to invite us to do what he is doing. And when Jesus does, it's all good and it's all wonderful. Yet midway through this faith-developing moment, it gets real. We become aware of the full impact of stepping out on faith and following Jesus. We take notice of all that we stand to lose by standing on faith. We realize that our earthly accolades and commendations will not help us in this situation. We realize that our intellect, our money, our status, our MacGyver-like skills, etc., cannot defy nature, and we are just out here. We realize that we have left all that is comfortable to us. We realize that we are out in the open waters, exposed to the elements, and there is nothing there to catch us. And sometimes we get scared. We noticed the wind. We notice all the things that can harm us. We notice our enemies. We notice all the reasons why trusting God is scary. We notice all the reasons that this could be a bad idea. We also notice all the problems with our proposal, with starting a business, with writing a book, with going back to school in this season, with taking a new job which pays less. We began to notice all the reasons why, all the things that could possibly go wrong. They become rushing in on us like the boisterous wind of this storm. We notice our proverbial winds blowing in the voices of all the people who have helped us to think through this decision. We notice the wind in their well-meaning words of warning, asking us, are you sure about this? We notice the wind when we have a setback in our health. We notice the wind when the first set of bills comes due. We notice the wind all around us, and we begin to sink. And beloved of God, if the truth is told, we begin to notice the wind when the coronavirus, when this pandemic seems to shake up everything that we've stepped out on faith to try to do. Yet, water walking is about trusting God enough to come out of our comfort zones without safety nets, to walk by faith with God. Water walking calls us from our safe spaces to be risk takers. Yet we are not taking risks indiscriminately. We are not taking the best calculated risk ever. When we water walk, we are really taking a risk that is not a risk at all, because God is with us. The I am that I am, Emmanuel, is with us, and God is bidding us to come. God is walking alongside us, there to keep us safe. Peter noticed the wind. He became frightened and began to sink. When Peter began to sink, he called on Jesus to save him. Now, even though Peter recognizes his surroundings with the storm, the open sea, and being out of the boat, Peter also recognizes Jesus. Jesus, the ego I me, the I am, is right there with Peter. And he reaches out his hand to save Peter. Jesus was always there with Peter, and when Peter's faith failed him, Jesus was there to save him. My sisters and my brothers, as we are talking or as we are walking on the water and we begin to notice the wind, like Peter, our recognition of the wind must be overshadowed by our recognition of the presence of God with us. When we get scared, when we begin to doubt, when we begin to second guess ourselves and we want to turn back, we must recognize the presence of Jesus right there with us. We must recognize the one who called us out of our boats to walk on water with him. We must recognize that the Christ who has called us is also the one who controls the wind and the waves. Jesus, ego I me, Emmanuel, God who is with us, is also the one who is the creator and the sustainer of the world. This same omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent God is with us. And when we recognize that, we can call out to Jesus to save us. Beloved of God, water walking is about trusting God. It is about trusting that as God has revealed God's self in the life and experiences of others, God is consistent, and is that for you too. You can walk on water when you have faith that God is who God says God is. Yet water walking is also about trusting God enough to follow God, even in the midst of stormy gales. You see, water walking says that no matter what is going on in my immediate and even extended environs, I will trust God who has called me. No matter what's going on politically, I will trust God who called me. No matter who is in power, I will trust God who called me. No matter what the threats are against me and the people who try to blackmail me, I will trust the God who called me. Though the storms of life are raging, I can trust God even in them. Though things are getting difficult since I've decided to follow Jesus, I will continue to walk. Water walking is about knowing and not just singing the lyrics of the song, "My soul is anchored in the Lord." Yet take notice of this. Peter had to keep walking. He was in the middle of the sea, on the water, in the storm, and even though Jesus had saved him and pulled him up from the water, he could not stay where he was. Peter needed to reactivate his faith so that he could keep walking in order to get back into the boat. Therefore, Peter needed to continue to trust Jesus, and the storm had not yet ceased. So Peter has to reactivate his faith while the storm is still raging. Sometimes, beloved of God, our personal storms come and they do not cease even though we have reactivated our faith. Sometimes our storms do not cease even though Jesus has saved us from drowning. Sometimes our storms don't cease even though Jesus has pulled us up out of the deep waters that have come over our heads. Sometimes, even though Jesus has pulled up out of the waters, we still find ourselves outside of the boat in the middle of a raging sea, in the middle of a storm. And just let that sink in for a minute. Even when we reactivate our faith, the wind may still blow. The waters may still beat against us. The rain may still come down in torrents. The difference is that even though the storm continues, our focus is now on Jesus, who saves us from the storm, who saves us while we're in the storm. Like Peter, we walk by our faith in Jesus, but we must reassert our faith so that even when we are scared, we call on the name of Jesus. Lord, call me out of my boat. Lord, show me who you are. Lord, save me when my doubt drowns me. Lord, keep me when I am still in the storm. Lord, escort me to safety. Lord, whatever you do, just don't leave me. Lord, be with me. Lord, walk beside me. Lord, guide me. Lord, help me to keep my focus on you. Lord, help me to walk on water. Lord, hold me up when everything seems to be crashing against me, because water walking is about trusting God beyond what is logical by human wisdom. Water walking is about trusting God when it doesn't make sense, so that you can be with God where God is working. You see, human logic says that you must stay in the boat at all times, especially during a storm. Yet water walking requires that wherever God is, you are there with God. Wherever God is working, you join God there. Whatever God is doing, you join God in doing it. And beloved of God, that's all I'm suggesting to you. God is speaking to us tonight, and God is helping us to understand that just as Jesus revealed himself to Peter, we must get out of our comfort zones so that we can see Jesus reveal himself in our lives. And even though the storms continue to rage, because if you follow the text, you will notice that the storm does not cease until both Jesus and Peter get back in the boat, and Jesus speaks to the storm and says, "Peace, be still." I need somebody tonight to hear me, because some of you are going through some storms. You're going through the storms of financial difficulty. You're going through the storms of the coronavirus. You're going through the storms of wondering about your stability at work. You're going through the storms of having a supervisor that just keeps getting on your nerves. You're going through the storms of your family is acting up. You're going through the storms of your children are acting crazy. You're going through all kinds of storms. And Jesus reminds us that you must trust me even in the storm. You must reactivate your faith even in the storm, because I may not stop the storm in order for you to get yourself together. I may not stop the storm in order for you to pull yourself up. I may not stop the storm, but you gotta trust me while you're in it. And so I need you to take your focus off of the wind that's blowing over here. I need you to take your focus off the wind that is over there. I need you to take your focus off the wind that is swirling all around you, and keep your eye on Jesus, who rides with you through the storm. I need you to keep your eye on Jesus, who pulls you up out of the water when it's coming over your head. I need you to keep your eye on Jesus, who says, "Walk with me as we go back to the boat." And then, maybe, just maybe, Jesus will speak to your storm and say, "Peace, be still." But beloved of God, if we are going to walk on water, you must prepare yourself ourselves to understand and to know that water walking happens in the midst of storms. Walking on the water does not come when things are easy and calm and cool. Walking on the water is a faith act in and of itself. Where are the places where God is calling you, inviting you to step out of that which is comfortable in order to walk in faith with God? Beloved of God, that's our message tonight. God is calling us to be water walkers. God is calling us out of places of calmness and safety and comfortability in order to exercise our faith, even in the midst of storm. In this time of a tumultuous political season, in this time of a tumultuous and uncertain season where there's a global pandemic and our numbers continue to rise after having fallen so much, in a time when we don't know how much worse it's going to get before it gets better, Jesus is calling us to walk on water, to trust what Jesus is doing, and that Jesus is with us. Ego a me. The I am that I am. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be unto God.
Come and let's go back on a journey. The year was 1963. The place was Nutley, New Jersey, in the First Baptist Church where I pastored. And gathered there that evening was James Cleveland, the angelic choir. And I recall going to my pulpit and giving the folks a little spiritual advice before we sang. I said, when you get home, get your Bible. Read Mark, the 4th chapter, starting at the 37th verse, going down to the 41st verse. And in the context of these verses, you will find a story of Jesus and his disciples as they commanded a boat and went out on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus got tired and went down in the hinder part of the ship and went to sleep. But while Jesus slept, the cosmic phenomenals of the world broke loose. The sky got as black as 1,000 midnights down in a cypress swamp. The thunders rolled across the heavens. The lightning wrote her zigzag name on the bosom of the clouds. And the waters tossed and turned that little ship. And these men who thought they knew so much about the sea decided we better go get Jesus. And they went down and they shook Jesus. And Jesus got up, came up, stood on the ship, looked around, and chastised them first by saying, "O ye of little faith, what are you so concerned about?" And he raised his hand and said 3 words, "Peace, be still." The sun came out, the clouds dissipated, the thunder hushed its voice, the winds went back in its chambers and slammed the doors. The waters laid down like a baby and said, "We're gonna hold you so you don't rock no more." Aren't we like that? As long as we think we can handle our ship, we don't call on Jesus. But when the going get rough, when things get tough, we call on Jesus. And when they woke him up, somebody said, "Reverend Roberts, what did they say?" This is what they said. These are the words when they woke my Savior. They said this. What?
Master, the tempest is raging. Oh, the billows the sky is all shadow, oh, with blackness. Oh, no, no shelter. Oh, yeah, ooh, is night. But honey, this is the point. Listen. Carry that not that we perish. Oh, how can I lie asleep? Oh, when it seemed like each moment is so madly threatening. Oh yes, Lord. Somebody know what they said. A grave, a grave, a grave. Oh, indeed. Yeah, Lord. Get up, Jesus. Carolyn, help me.
Obey my will.
Oh, yeah.
Peace be still.